So I've been using the OnePlus Nord and recently got the iPhone XR as well. Currently I'm using both of these devices, so let's do a detailed comparison talking about all the important stuff like the performance, the camera quality, the battery life, and basically everything you should know before choosing between the two, or just in case if you are curious to know which one is better. So guys, if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and also like this video. Let's begin. So first let's talk about the looks and design, the in-hand feel. The OnePlus definitely has a thinner profile, smaller bezels compared to the iPhone XR. I mean, the XR is not too bad in terms of that chin, but the side bezels actually look to be a little bit bigger. And on the top you have the notch versus the dual punch hole. I personally prefer the dual punch hole. It is slightly less obstructive when you're watching videos and stuff. If you look at the overall size, the OnePlus Nord has a bigger display. As you can see here, it's taller. So when you watch videos in landscape, you get that wider screen experience on the OnePlus Nord compared to the iPhone XR. On the back you have the glass on both of these and they look definitely premium, but the OnePlus Nord feels lighter, probably because it has that plastic frame around it versus the aluminum frame on the iPhone XR. So when you hold them in your hands, definitely the XR feels a bit more premium and a bit more solid because of that aluminum borders. So overall the XR is better built, but I personally would pick the OnePlus because of those better looks and the ergonomics and that lighter weight. So let's talk about the display first. The refresh rates 60 versus 90 Hz. Yes, it is clearly noticeable. I mean, when you are opening and closing apps, this is where I notice this the most. Obviously 90 Hz is better over 60 Hz, but this hasn't been a big deal for me and the user experience has been generally pretty good. Now talking about the display, obviously the OnePlus has a better display with that AMOLED and Full HD resolution versus the LCD panel on the XR with a lower resolution. So let's put the specs aside and let's talk about the real experience. So when watching videos, it's not a huge difference. I mean, unless I compare them side by side, I do not have an issue watching videos. The videos on the XR looks just pretty good. The text also looks pretty good, no issues, but only when I'm using some apps or whenever I'm browsing, when there are images embedded in those apps or in the browser, that is when I actually notice that the XR actually looks less sharper. Just look at the banners or the images embedded in these apps. You will definitely notice the difference, but I'm talking about experience with the XR as is. Even when I am not comparing it side by side, even then I do notice this difference because I am coming from a Full HD display. So if you are coming from a Full HD display, definitely you should notice this difference. And frankly, this was to be expected because no matter how good the panel is, there is no substitute for more pixels and the sharpness. So when I took them under direct sunlight, you can see the XR is head to head with the AMOLED display on the OnePlus. Both of them are visible, as you can see clearly. So apart from that, in terms of display quality overall, it is pretty good. Also, I want to point out the color temperature on the XR is warmer, as you can see, compared to the OnePlus. It almost looks yellowish, and I haven't enabled that true tone, as you can see here. I believe you can tweak this in the settings to some extent, but this is what you get out of the box. Now moving to the performance, the XR has a flagship grade processor versus mid-range on the OnePlus, but it is surprising to see the multi-core score on both of these. So let's do a quick speed test of sorts between the two, opening some of the generally used apps. So you can see nothing is running in the background on both of these phones. And let me just open some apps like the Flipkart. And both of these are actually connected to the same Wi-Fi network. I guess it was a little faster on the XR. Anyway, let's move to the next app, Amazon. Again, slightly faster on the XR. Let's open another app, that is the Prime Video. Again, faster on the XR. Let's open another app, YouTube. Again, faster on the XR. So usually the XR is faster in terms of opening apps, and not just that, in terms of multitasking and app switching, RAM management, the iPhones are usually better. This OnePlus phone has 8GB RAM versus 3GB on the XR. But if you notice the app switching, especially when you have a lot of apps loaded in the RAM, it is not very smooth or fluid. I mean, they keep reloading. Versus on the iPhones, generally it is fluid. I mean, currently not too many apps loaded, but even when more apps are loaded, generally the swiping gesture or the multitasking, this is just much better on the iPhone OS. So in terms of switching between apps, multitasking, the fluidity, I would give this to the 10R. Now moving to the cameras, you have single camera versus quad camera setup, but a couple of them are just mostly useless. Anyway, let's compare the primary sensors. So this was shot at about 5:30 p.m. and I prefer the 10R's picture because it does seem to represent the real conditions a little bit better. Let me know which one you prefer between the two. And if I zoom in, I do find that the nod actually seems to be a little bit sharper. Just look at the pole. Again, same conditions, a beautiful scene of the water and the skies. There isn't much dynamic range, but if you look at the skies and the reflection in the waters, I would definitely pick the 10R over the OnePlus picture. So this was in the afternoon. It has a lot of colors and the OnePlus picture seems to be easily likable, but it did boost the colors quite a bit. So you see the saturated colors versus on the 10R, it's a bit more natural, but I do not like that warmer tone coming on this picture, which we are also going to see in some of the other photos as well. So this is about 7 p.m. under artificial lighting, and just look at the white balance and the exposure levels. The difference is quite a bit between the two. OnePlus seems to brighten the picture and the white balance is generally cooler. The 10R is almost yellowish, but neither of these actually represent the real scene. This also comes down to personal preference, so let me know which one you like the best. And let's not forget OnePlus has the wide angle which the 10R lacks. Again, the same conditions and you notice the same patterns, but the 10R seems to have a slightly better contrast, and let me know which one you prefer the best. So generally the difference is between the way they handle the exposure, the white balance and the colors of course. In terms of sharpness, I haven't seen a huge difference, but in this particular picture, I find that the 10R seems to have a slightly sharper picture here. So it was quite dark here and almost there was no light, but this is on the OnePlus without nightscape versus the 10R. I'm surprised to see the 10R did a very good job here. But anyway, the OnePlus also has the nightscape, so this is how it looks with the nightscape on. And again, let's compare them side by side with the nightscape on versus the 10R. The OnePlus definitely seems to brighten up the scene, but the 10R's picture is not too bad either. Now moving to the videos, the OnePlus can only shoot at 4K 30 FPS, and I normally use the 1080p 60 because I feel overall it brings better video quality. This is 1080p 60 FPS on the OnePlus, and if you look at the 10R, definitely the 10R looks much better with the 4K 60 FPS. You get better dynamic range, better autofocusing, and the exposure shift is more graceful on the iPhone. Now I shot a lot of footage, but I didn't want to include because the video would be too long, but definitely I picked the 10R in terms of video over the OnePlus Nord. Now moving to the battery life, first let's talk about the charging. You get the 30-watt charging and it is really fast and it makes the whole day-to-day experience a lot better compared to the 5-watt charger, but I don't really use the 5-watt charger on the iPhone 10R because it takes almost 2 to 3 hours. The 10R does support fast charging, but you need to again spend some extra money to get that fast charging. Now moving to the battery life, both of these offer some pretty good battery life. Usually the iPhones are not known for great battery life, but the 10R actually proves it wrong and it goes head to head with some of the best Android phones with good battery life. But between the two, the OnePlus Nord still has better battery life. I mean, I could play a heavy game for 3 hours straight and it still stands at about 40% like a champ, which cannot be said about the 10R, but with the recent updates, I believe it's not at its best, but still, generally it's an all-day battery life phone. So which one should you pick? For iOS, for better gaming and for a slightly better camera, especially the video, get the 10R, and for everything else, get the OnePlus. So that's been it guys. If you found this video helpful, please like this video, also subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.